Hey guys, the Black Empanadilla, and I'm here to bring you my Dimir Red Splash deck profile. First things first, we're going to start off with the multicolored cards, and we're going to begin with 3 copies of Discovery Dispersal. I fell in love with this card when I first opened a couple out of the packs and the Dimir guild gates. I thought it was very good. The Surveil 2 draw 1 is very easy to get off thanks to the hybrid mana. And the dispersal side of it, while you won't necessarily use it all the time, the fact that it's instant speed and can get rid of any non-land permanent that doesn't target, it's a nice little bit of removal if there's a little bit of something annoying. And if their hand is empty, then it's just like free get rid of, so bingo. Next, we'll be running 2 copies of Disinformation Campaign. Slam it on the field, sack your opponent, draw a card, and anytime you surveil, you get to bounce it back in your hand and repeat the whole lovely process. 4 copies of Thought Erasure. Same idea as Disinformation Campaign, except you don't get, with Disinformation Campaign, your opponent discards whatever they choose. Whereas with Thought Erasure, you can sack anything from their hand except a non-land card. And you get to surveil 1. It's nice hand disruption, and it's just frankly very nice to have. 2 copies of Nightveil Predator. He is a slightly more difficult body to bust out. That's why I only run 2. But Flying, Death Touch, and Hexproof is not bad by any stretch of the word. If you don't really like him, you can take him out of your profile, but personally, I think he's here to stay, and he's very nice against the aggro matchups. 1 copy of Notion Rain, and 1 copy of Thief of Sanity. I keep saying Sanctity. Sanity is very nice. You deal damage, pick off the top 3 cards of your opponent's library, exile 1 to use, the other 2 go to the grave, and you can cast it at any time, look at it any time, not at instant speed, or depending on what the card is. If it's an instant, you can cast it. And the best part is you can use any mana, so you don't have to worry about stealing a red card and not having any red mana to use. And even if it was like that, you still have red mana splashed in the deck anyway, so that's a non-issue. Anyway, those are all the multicolored cards. Now let's get to the monocolors. Right now, we're going to be doing black. Starting off with 3 copies of Sovereign's Bite. The effect's pretty straightforward. Helps out with the aggro matchups. 1 copy of Creeping Chill. My original plan was to replace the Sovereign's Bites with Creeping Chill, and you're probably thinking, doesn't that do the same thing, but this is slightly more expensive? Remember, the bottom text is whenever it hits the grave, you get to exile it and get Creeping Chill's effect off for free without paying any mana. So, while it's true you never want to activate that thing while it's in your hand, because it's just a way more expensive Sovereign's Bite. But if you surveil and you drop it off, you get to basically cast it for free and not have to worry about it. So that's really nifty. 2 copies of Ritual of Suit. As far as I'm aware of in the standard meta, there is a lot of low-level creatures that can be very, very annoying. Goblin Chain Whirler. And not just that, but there's a lot of token spam decks out there as well, and this will put the kibosh on that. Now, while there are a lot of low CMC creatures in our deck as well, you just have to time it right so that even if it does kind of blow up on you, it doesn't blow up as badly. 2 copies of Whispering Snitch. You get the whole life gain thing going on, because the one problem this deck has is that since it's control, you can get overwhelmed by aggro very, very easily. So being able to gain life by any means necessary will help you survive in order to clean out house. And last but not least, 1 copy of Blood Operative. The life link is very nice. I love the Graveyard Disruption, and anytime you surveil, you can pay 3 life and bounce him back to your hand. So even if you blow him up with Ritual of Suit, he's coming back. And now we'll go ahead and focus on the blue. 2 copies of Negate to stop any non-creature spell, really. So for those people who get slammed on by Black Blade Reforged or Experimental Frenzy, this is a toy you can use in order to take them out. These happen to be the Kaldesh versions, but since this was reprinted in Ixalan, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Ixalan, it's standard legal, so you ain't gotta worry about it. 2 copies of Night Veil Sprite. Anytime this thing attacks, you get to Surveil 1. It's basically a permanent Surveil trigger as long as you can keep her alive. That's very nice to have. 3 copies of Sinister Sabotage. It's a good counter spell, and you Surveil 1. That's very nice. And last but not least, 3 copies of Thoughtbound Phantasm. If I had a 4th one, I'd throw it in there, but at the moment, all I have is 3. It has Defender. Anytime you Surveil, you slam a 1/1 on it. But once it has 3 or more 1/1 counters, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So when you drop it, it's already a 2/2 just to begin. But as you Surveil, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then if you Surveil enough, you got yourself a freaking 10/10 on board. That only costed you like 1 mana. Eventually, they're going to have to waste some removal on it, which brings you 1 step closer to victory. And now, let's talk about the Red Splash. It's not too much, just a few cards. 2 copies of Crash Through. Even though it gains you trample, you don't necessarily use it for that. You just use it for the 1 drop, draw 1 card. That's pretty straightforward. 2 copies of Lightning Strike. It's nice removal, a little bit of burn if you feel the need, whatever the heck it is you need to do. And finally, 2 copies of Tormenting Voice. It's additional draw power that is able to do this, a similar thing to Notion Rain, but it costs 1 less, and you don't have to burn yourself for 2 life. Not to mention, you get to throw stuff in your graveyard, so you have some more toys to play with. For the mana base, we have 8 swamps, 2 mountains, 2 copies of Dragon Skull Summit. It's a nice buddy land from Ixalan. I had some lying around, so I figured I might as well throw them in there. And we have 8 islands, respectively, and 2 Dimir Guild Gates. If I had the Drowned Catacombs, or the Blue-Black Shockland, or the Red-Black Shockland, or even the Izzet Shockland, I would happily throw them in, but I just don't own them right at this moment. Alright, thank you so much for tuning in to this Magic the Gathering deck profile. This is still going to be a mainly Yu-Gi-Oh channel, so don't be afraid, but I have grown to respect the Magic the Gathering community and the game in general. So thank you so much for tuning in, and this is the Black Campanadilla signing out.